This, yeah, this one, man.
This is a video about things like cars, phones, and light bulbs, and an actual conspiracy that made them worse.
That's it! Dude, I remember this. Oh my god, it's all coming back. Okay, we can watch this a little bit later. Holy shit. Wait, I'm gonna get a gamer subs, man. I'm gonna get a gamer subs real fast. I'm gonna boost this in the background while I go get my gamer subs ready, so you guys can just chill and watch. I've already seen it, but whoever hasn't seen it, this shit is fucking crazy. I'll be right back.
The video was sponsored by NordVPN.
BRB.
More about them at the end of the video. I am outside Livermore Fire Station number 6. And in here, they have the longest continuously on light bulb in the world. It has been on for 120 years, since 1901. There it is, huh? It's not even connected to a light switch, but it does have a backup battery and generator. So the big question is, how has this light bulb lasted so long? It was manufactured by hand not long after commercial light bulbs were first invented. And yet, it has been running for over 1 million hours, way longer than any light bulb today is meant to last. A while back, a friend of mine told me this story, that someone had invented a light bulb that would last forever, years ago. But they never sold it because an everlasting light bulb makes for a terrible business model. I mean, you would never have any repeat customers, and eventually you would run out of people to sell light bulbs to. I thought this story sounded ridiculous. If you could make an everlasting light bulb, then everyone would buy your light bulb over the competitors. And so you could charge really high prices, make a lot of money, even if demand would eventually dry up. I just couldn't imagine that we had better light bulbs in the past and then intentionally made them worse. But it turns out I was wrong. At least, sort of. Inventing a viable electric light was hard. I mean, this is the typical incandescent design, which just involves passing electric current through a material, making it so hot that it glows.
This shit's crazy, right?
Less than 5% of the electrical energy comes out as light. The other 95% is released as heat. So these are really heat bulbs, which give off a little bit of light as a byproduct. You know, the temperature of the filament can get up to 2800 Kelvin. That is half as hot as the surface of the sun. At temperatures like those, most materials melt, and if they don't melt, they burn. Which is why in the 1840s, Warren de la Rue came up with the idea of putting the filament in a vacuum bulb, so there's no oxygen to react with. By 1879, Thomas Edison had made a bulb with a cotton thread filament that lasted 14 hours. Other inventors created bulbs with platinum filaments or other carbonized materials, and gradually the lifespan of bulbs increased. The filaments changed from carbon to tungsten, which has a very high melting point, and by the early 1920s, average bulb lifetimes
bulbs are over
were
anyways. LED has replaced them,
with some lasting 2,500 hours. But this is when lifetimes stopped getting longer and started getting shorter. In Geneva, Switzerland,
these motherfuckers, man. LED is the way, yeah.
There was a secret meeting of top executives from the world's leading light bulb companies. Philips, dude. International General Electric, Tokyo Electric, Osram from Germany, and the UK's Associated Electric, among others. They formed what became known as the Phoebus cartel.
That's so
named
fucked.
After Phoebus, the Greek god of light. All these companies agreed to work together to help each other by controlling the world's supply of light bulbs. In the early days of the electrical industry, there had been lots of different small light bulb manufacturers, but by now,
LEDs are worse now than when they were released? The same reason, planned obsolescence? Wait, really?
In a particular part of the world.
Oh, fuck, man.
The biggest threat they all faced was from longer-lasting light bulbs. For example, in 1923, Osram sold 63 million light bulbs, but the following year, they sold only 28 million. Light bulbs were lasting too long, eating into sales. So all the companies in the cartel agreed to reduce the lifespan of their bulbs to 1,000 hours.
How fucked is that, dude?
The existing average almost
How fucked is that?
But how could each company ensure that the other companies would actually follow the rules and make shorter-lasting light bulbs?
We can do it.
After all, it would be in each of their individual interests to make a better
Cars,
product.
printers,
to
oh yeah,
outsell the
printers,
others.
holy fuck, true.
Well, to enforce the 1,000-hour limit, each of the manufacturers had to send in sample bulbs
everything we buy,
from their
right?
factories. And they were tested on big
Computer
test
parts.
stands like this one. If a bulb lasted significantly longer than 1,000 hours, well, then the company was fined. If a bulb lasted longer than 3,000 hours, well, the fine was 200 Swiss francs for every 1,000 bulbs sold.
That's so
And there are
fucked.
records of these fines being issued to companies. But how do you make a worse light bulb in the first place?
Yeah,
Well,
fuck
the same
printers.
engineers who had previously been tasked with extending the lifespan now had to find ways to decrease it. So they tried different materials, different shaped filaments, and thinner connections.
Oh
And
yeah,
if you look
clothes,
at the data,
socks,
they
shoes,
were successful.
babies,
Ever
girlfriend.
since the
Wait,
formation of the cartel, the lifespan of light bulbs steadily decreased.
Girlfriends have
so that by
planned obsolescence?
1934, the average lifespan was just 1,205 hours. And just as they had planned, sales increased for cartel members by 25% in 4 years after 1926.
That's crazy.
And even though the cost of components came down, the cartel kept prices virtually unchanged, so they increased their profit margins. So did people know that the light bulb companies were conspiring together to make their products worse? No. The Phoebus cartel claimed that its purpose was to increase standardization and efficiency of light bulbs. I mean, they did establish this screw thread as standard. You can find it on virtually all light bulbs around the world now. But all evidence points to the cartels being motivated by profits and increased sales, not by what was best for consumers. So, one of the reasons this light bulb has lasted so long is because it was made before the cartel era.
Oh,
Another reason
yeah.
is because the filament has always been run at low power, just 4 or 5 watts.
That's so fucked,
It was meant
man.
to be a night light for the fire station to provide just enough light.
Yo,
so
Nemu,
that
thank you so
firemen
much for the
wouldn't
raid,
run
dude.
into things.
Thank you so much. I hope you had a great stream. Thank you so much for coming by. Hope you guys had a lot of fun. We're just watching, holy shit, man. Should we let him in on the conspiracy, bro? We're just watching light bulb shit. Light bulb lore.
At night. And the fact that it was always on reduced the thermal cycling of the filament and components, limiting the stress caused by thermal expansion and contraction.
Oh, man.
The Phoebus cartel was initially planned to last at least until 1955, but it fell apart in the 1930s.
They
It
can't
was
handle
already
the truth.
struggling due to outside competition
gonna have to tell
and
'em.
non-compliance amongst some of its members, but the outbreak of World War II is really what finished it off. So this cartel was dead.
Oops, sorry.
But its methods survive to this day. There are lots of companies out there
True.
that intentionally shorten the lifespan of their products. It's a tactic known now as planned obsolescence.
There we go, man. This is what we're talking
was
about.
actually the subject of Casey Neistat's first viral video, all the way back in 2003.
Yeah, here it is.
Thank you for calling Apple. My name's Ryan. May I have your first name, please? Casey. All right. What seems to be the issue today?
I have an iPod that I bought about 18 months ago, and the battery is dead on it.
18 months. Okay, it's past
We're all
the year,
full
which basically
circle,
means
boys.
there'll be a charge of $255.
There
plus
it
a
is.
mailing fee to send it to us to refurb it, to correct it. But at that price, you might as well go get a new one.
This video got millions of views in a time before YouTube or social media.
Yeah, I've actually
and
never
it
seen that
spawned
video.
a class action lawsuit, which Apple settled out of court. But it didn't stop the company from practicing planned obsolescence. After an iOS update in
$250
2017,
to replace the battery.
users of older iPhones found apps loading significantly slower or the device shutting down altogether.
Yes.
Apple
yes.
said they throttled
happens.
performance to protect the battery of older devices and increase their longevity. Of course, that wouldn't be an issue if the battery were replaceable. In a series of lawsuits that concluded in 2020, Apple was fined or reached settlements to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. Undoubtedly, this amount pales in comparison to the extra revenue they generate by limiting the lifespan of their products.
Yeah, they can just get away with it, man.
But some would argue that planned obsolescence isn't just about
Pocket
greed,
change.
but that it's also good for everyone. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, when as much as a quarter of Americans were out of work, an American real estate broker, Bernard London, proposed mandatory planned obsolescence as a way to get people back to work and lift America out of the Depression. He wrote, I would have the government assign a lease of life to shoes and homes and machines when they are first created, and they would be sold and used within the term of their existence definitely known by the consumer. After the allotted time had expired, these things would be legally
we never had a chance,
dead
bros.
and would be controlled by the duly appointed governmental agency and destroyed if there is widespread unemployment. Now, this might sound like a wild, fringe idea, but people were clearly afraid of being put out of work by technological progress and products that were too good. There was even a popular Oscar-nominated film about it. This is The Man in the White Suit from 1951.
Oh, I've never actually
It's
seen
about a
this.
scientist who invents the perfect fiber. It won't stain or break or
Yeah.
fray.
I think I've succeeded
I've heard
in
of
the
this.
copolymerization of amino acid residues and carbohydrate molecules, both containing ionic groups. It's really perfectly simple.
The Academy Award nomination was for Best Screenplay. I kid you not. Anyway, everyone is initially excited about our hero's scientific discovery. He makes a suit out of the thread, and it has to be white because the fiber is so stain-resistant it can't even be dyed. But this is when trouble strikes. The factory owners realize they won't be able to sell as much of this thread because it's so durable.
It's too perfect.
And the workers worry it'll put them out of a job.
Why can't you scientists leave things alone? What about my bit of washing when there's no washing to do?
This is when you get the climactic scene where factory workers and factory owners team up to chase down the scientist to destroy him and his invention. And believe it or not, this movie may have been
always the
inspired by
scientist.
real events. In the 1940s, the synthetic fiber nylon replaced silk in stockings, and it was so durable that the products became an overnight sensation. There were literal riots when women tried to get their hands on them.
Always the fucking scientists,
When the
man. They ruin
manufacturers
everything.
realized they had made the product too good,
Chill for a little bit.
they
huh?
didn't destroy the fiber, but they did follow the example of the Phoebus cartel. They instructed their engineers and scientists to find ways to weaken the product, to shorten its lifespan so people would have to buy more. Now, it seems like consumers are finally fighting back against planned obsolescence. In the European Union and in over 25 states in the US, there's proposed legislation to enshrine the right to repair. Now, these laws would force manufacturers to
I
make
remember
it
this.
easier to repair their products. They would have to provide information and access to parts, so you could replace a battery or fix a cracked screen at a third-party repair shop without voiding your warranty. So if the right to repair does become law, does that mean artificial obsolescence will be gone for good? Sadly, no, because there is one last thing manufacturers can use to make their products obsolete, which is you. Henry Ford
it's worse
released
than
the first
agricultural machinery?
mass-market car, the Model T, in 1908, and he envisioned it like a workhorse, an affordable tool that wouldn't wear out, a bit like the everlasting light bulb. In 1922, Ford said, "We want the man who buys one of our cars never to have to buy another. We never make an improvement that renders any previous model
Good idea, buddy.
obsolete." But by 1920, 55% of American families already owned a car. Nearly everyone that could afford one had one. And that same year, there was a small economic downturn driving down sales for both Ford and General Motors. In 1921, DuPont, the chemical and paint
It's supposedly
company,
illegal to
took over the
refuse
controlling
service for
share
destroying
in
warranty
General
stickers.
Motors.
Really?
And they started experimenting with painting cars different colors. Up until then, Henry Ford had said, you could have whatever color you like, so long as it's black. It took a couple of years of testing, but in 1924, GM released their first cars in different colors. And soon after, they introduced a trick that feels very familiar now. Each new year, they would introduce cars in different colors. The goal wasn't just to make Ford's Model T look...
I mean, you guys know about DuPont, right? They've never had anything crazy. They've never been behind anything crazy before. DuPont has been where could it go wrong, you know? It's not like they poisoned a water supply before or anything like that.
Look outdated, but to make their own cars feel outdated every
You don't
year.
know? You know, there's actually a really good movie about this, starring, what is that fucking guy's name? What's his name? Don't say it. Oh, Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, Mark Ruffalo. I feel stupid. I don't know what DuPont is. DuPont is like they're like a paint and chemical company, right? They basically kind of, without going too deep, a TLDR, they basically ended up poisoning like a whole, this was in Ohio, right? Wasn't this back in Ohio? They ended up poisoning and dumping a shit ton of chemicals into like a water supply in Ohio. And a lot of people got really fucking sick because they're ingesting chemicals. And then they like try to cover it up, and there's like a whole thing about it. It was really slimy, really fucked up, man. Yeah, the real dude is still fighting in court. Yeah, that's right. What is the name of that movie? Dark Waters. Yeah, Dark Waters. This movie. This shit was really good. Yeah, Cincinnati, Ohio. Yep, it was Ohio. But yeah, basically there was a unexplained animal deaths. In West Virginia, and just people with like, you know, various illnesses and stuff like that. And no one could figure out why until they kind of did a little bit more research and figured out that it was
90% of people's blood worldwide.
Oh my God, really? That's the rough history of DuPont. Basically, they try to get rid of the evidence of basically poisoning a lot of people, and they're still fighting in court today. Classic.
Encouraging customers to
Classic.
trade in their old cars for shiny new ones. Years later, GM's head of design Harley Earl candidly discussed his role in creating what he called dynamic obsolescence. Our big job is to hasten obsolescence. In 1934, the average car ownership span was 5 years. Now, which was 1955, it is 2 years. When it is 1 year,
somebody poisoned the water hole.
Score. By the time he said this, General Motors was the most valuable company in the world, and it sold half of all vehicles purchased in the US every year.
Wow.
These days, the world's most valuable company, Apple, seems to have copied directly out of this playbook. I mean, new styles every year? Check. New special colors every year? Check. Marginal technological improvement? Check. I mean, is this useful innovation or just a gimmick? The inspiration for General Motors
thank you, Paladin.
Apple comes from fashion.
Thank you so much, bro.
Where real innovation
Thank you for 11
is
months,
all
man.
but impossible. So the only way to make people feel the urgency to get out there and buy is to create styles that last but one season. The trouble then is you run through these styles too quickly, and then what are you supposed to do? Well, just recycle the styles from a few decades ago. The iPhone also shows this recycling trend. I mean, just look at the way the edges were initially rounded, and then they were squared off. And then they were rounded again, and now they're squared off. And how much do you want to bet that the iPhone 14 has rounded edges? I think the point is that with design and styling, there is no best.
Wow.
There's only different, which is apparently enough to remind us that we don't have the latest and greatest, and so we have to rush out and keep buying.
True.
The only type of obsolescence
Guys,
we
we've
should
been
support
brainwashed.
is technological, which brings us back to the light bulb. You know, in the last 20 years, light bulbs have gone from incandescent, which was basically unchanged for 100 years, to compact fluorescent, and now to LED.
Speak for yourself.
These
Are you
use
not
just
brainwashed?
a tenth the energy and
I'm
can last
brainwashed.
anywhere from 10 to 50 times longer. Yeah, that's pretty bright.
Holy
so
shit.
you're more likely to sell your house than to have to replace an LED bulb that you've installed inside it. So we've finally reached the point of what is essentially an everlasting light bulb.
Wait, but aren't those LEDs like getting fucked up too?
Wow.
Wow. Daddy likes. All right, back to it, boys.
The Pink Red is watching. Support the obsolescence.
I will buy Apple products forever. I will throw away my Apple products and buy new ones. I will never get tired of buying new things.